This is Mr. Wesley, and if you have been telling everyone you are fine, you are not fine. You know exactly what I mean. The specific and practiced answer you give when someone asks how you are doing with it. The way you redirect the conversation before it gets close enough to require an honest answer. The way you have learned to perform the composure of a man who has processed his divorce, moved on appropriately, and is now simply getting on with the business of living. When what is actually happening inside you at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night, when the house is quiet, and there is nothing left to manage, and nothing left to organize, is something that the composure you wear in public has never once touched. That performance is costing you something specific, something that compounds every month you maintain it. And what happened when I stopped maintaining it? The specific and unexpected things that happened in my body, in my relationships, in my capacity for genuine connection and genuine clarity about my own life, is what today is about. In a few minutes, I am going to tell you what the hiding actually costs at the physiological level, at the relational level, and at the level of your own understanding of what happened to your marriage. Costs that most men who are paying them have no idea they are paying because the hiding is so practiced that it has become invisible even to the man doing it. And I am going to tell you the one thing that happened when I stopped hiding that I did not anticipate and that changed my understanding of everything, including this channel, including the work I do now, including my capacity to have these conversations with you at all. But first I need to tell you what the hiding looked like from the inside, because from the outside, it looked like strength. I am Mr. Wesley, and today this introduction means something different from what it usually means. Today it means I am a man who went through the ending of a long marriage and who is telling you honestly what that cost and what became possible when I stopped managing it. This is Relational Insights, and this is the conversation I have been building toward for a while. The hiding looked like competence. That is the first thing you need to understand about it because it is the thing that makes it so difficult to identify while you are inside it. It did not look like denial. It did not look like a man who was obviously falling apart and holding himself together with visible effort. It looked like a man who had assessed his situation and was executing a plan. Who showed up to work? Who handled the legal process and the financial reorganization and the practical restructuring of a life that needed restructuring? Who responded to the question of how he was doing with the specific and honest-seeming answer of getting through it, one day at a time, doing what needs to be done? The people around me read that as strength. They gave me the respectful distance that people extend to a man who is clearly handling something, and their reading reinforced mine. If they thought I was handling it, maybe I was. What was happening on the inside was different. Inside the performance of competence, I was doing something that I now understand as affective suppression. The active management of feeling in a way that prevents it from being fully experienced or expressed, not the absence of grief. The continuous and energy-consuming work of keeping grief inside a container that is not designed to hold it permanently, and that requires increasing effort to maintain, as the pressure inside it builds. I was grieving without knowing I was grieving. My body knew. My body was registering everything the container was holding, with a specific and well-documented physiological response of sustained suppression. Elevated cortisol, disrupted sleep, the specific quality of exhaustion that does not come from activity, but from the continuous low-grade effort of maintenance. I was tired in a way that sleep did not fix. I attributed it to the demands of the post-divorce period. The demands were real, but the exhaustion was not their product. It was the product of the hiding. Picture this. A man I know, and when I say a man I know in this particular video, I mean a man I know from the inside, was 18 months out from the end of a 22-year marriage, and was by every external measure handling it extraordinarily well. He had restructured his finances. He had maintained his professional performance. He had been present for his children in the ways that the custody arrangement allowed. He had even begun, tentatively and without great expectation, to re-enter the social world. He was doing everything right. He was fine. He told everyone he was fine. He told himself he was fine. He was not fine. He was a man with a sealed container that was running out of room. The relational cost arrived before the physiological cost became impossible to ignore, and it arrived in the specific and quiet way that the hiding's costs tend to arrive. Not dramatically, not as a crisis, but as a gradual and unmistakable reduction in the quality of something that had been present before and was now less present. The quality of genuine connection in his relationships, not the function of the relationships. He was still showing up, still present, still reliable in every way that relationships require reliability, but the specific and felt quality of genuine availability in those relationships, the thing that the people who loved him most could feel when it was there, and notice when it was less there, had changed. His children felt it. His closest friends felt it. He felt it himself in the specific and private way of a man who is going through the motions of connection, and who knows somewhere beneath the performance of the connection that the real him is not quite in the room. The container was doing that. The sealed and maintained and constantly tended container of the hiding was preventing the genuine presence that genuine connection requires, not by intention, not by design, but because presence requires availability, and availability requires openness, and openness cannot coexist with a container that is being maintained against the pressure of everything it is holding. The hiding, which was supposed to protect everyone from the weight of what was inside it, was instead preventing the very thing that the people who loved him most actually wanted from him, which was not his composure, but his presence. Not his management of the pain, but his genuine self. Messy, unresolved, still in the middle of something difficult, genuinely human. That was what they wanted, and the container was keeping it from them, while delivering the performance of a man who was fine. I want to give you the moment the container opened, because the moment itself is important, and because the specific quality of it is something I want you to have as an image of what the stopping actually looks like when it happens. It did not happen in a therapist's office. It did not happen in a planned and structured conversation with a person I had specifically chosen for the purpose. It happened in the kitchen of a close friend at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday evening after dinner, in the specific and ordinary context of two men at a table with drinks they were not particularly attending to, and a conversation that had been moving in the direction of genuine territory for about 40 minutes before it arrived at the specific and undefended place where the container opened. My friend asked me something simple. He asked me what I actually missed, not what I had lost in the financial or practical sense. What I actually missed, and something in the specific quality of the question, the genuine curiosity of it, the absence of any agenda in it beyond the honest interest of a man who wanted to know the real answer, produced in me a response that the previous 18 months of performance had not produced. I told him, not eloquently, not with the clinical precision I bring to these videos, with the specific and unglamorous and genuinely honest expression of a man who was answering a question from the inside of what the question was asking about, rather than from the managed position above it. I cried. In the way that men of my generation rarely allow themselves to cry in the presence of another person. Not briefly, not with composure restored after a moment, actually, sustainedly, with the specific physical quality of a release that tells you very clearly how long the thing being released has been held. The friend did not fix it. He did not offer solutions or reframes or the specific and helpful advice that men tend to reach for when another man is in distress. He sat with it. He was present with it. And the experience of being present with the contents of the container rather than managing it alone, the specific and unfamiliar experience of another person knowing what was actually inside me and remaining in the room without requiring me to put it away, was the beginning of something that the 18 months of handling it had not been able to begin. Here is what happened after that evening. And I want to give you this specifically because it is the part of the story that the culture around male grief never addresses with any honesty, and that I think is the most useful thing I can offer you from my own experience. The physical symptoms began to ease within weeks. Not completely, not as a sudden resolution, but the quality of the sleep changed. The specific low-grade exhaustion of the suppression became less constant. There was more of me available to the days. More genuine energy, more genuine presence, more of the specific and felt quality of being actually in my own life, rather than maintaining the performance of a man who was handling it. The relational quality of my closest relationships deepened in a way that was both unexpected and completely legible in retrospect. When the people who loved me most had access to what I had actually been going through, when the container was no longer the primary thing they were encountering when they came into contact with me, the quality of what was between us changed, not because the sharing was dramatic or because the vulnerability was particularly impressive, because genuine intimacy requires genuine visibility. And I had been invisible in the specific and costly way of a man who is performing composure at the expense of presence. And then the thing I promised you. The thing I did not anticipate. The thing that changed my understanding of what the hiding had actually been doing. The clarity arrived. Not the clarity of a resolved situation, the clarity of a genuinely processed one. The specific and significant things about the history of the marriage, the patterns, the gaps, my own contributions alongside everything else that contributed, the honest and complete accounting that the suppression had been preventing, became available to me in the weeks and months following the opening of the container in a way they had not been available while the container was sealed. The understanding I had been unable to access while managing the experience from the outside arrived when I finally allowed myself to be inside it. And that understanding, specific, honest, mine in a way that the managed version was never quite mine, is the foundation of everything this channel is built on. Every framework I have given you in this series, every named pattern, every clinical precision, every honest conversation about what actually happens inside long marriages and what it actually costs and what it actually requires. All of it is downstream of that Wednesday evening in my friend's kitchen when the container opened and the real processing finally began. I am telling you this because the men in this room who are doing the same hiding need to understand what it is costing them at a level of specificity that the general cultural message about vulnerability and strength does not provide. The cost is not abstract, it is physiological, it is relational. It is the specific and ongoing deferral of the understanding that only properly processed experience can produce. And the cost compounds. Every month the container is maintained, the contents are less available for the processing that would release them, and more embedded in the body and the relationships and the decision-making of a man who is operating without the clarity he is paying the tuition to acquire. You do not have to open the container to everyone. You do not have to perform vulnerability for an audience or turn your private experience into a public project. You need one person, one conversation, one moment of genuine honesty with someone who has the capacity to sit with what you bring without requiring you to put it away. Not a perfect conversation in an ideal setting with the right words prepared. A real one. Messy, incomplete, genuinely honest. Somewhere. Soon. The container costs you something it cannot return. I stopped hiding. Not because I had planned to. Not because I had developed a framework for it. Because on an ordinary Wednesday evening someone asked me a genuine question, and I answered it genuinely, and the answer that came out was the beginning of everything I have been able to give you since. The most expensive thing a man can maintain after his divorce is the performance of a man who does not need to talk about it. Drop a comment. Men, what is the one thing about your divorce experience that you have never said out loud to another person? And what has the not saying it cost you in ways you are only beginning to recognize? Subscribe to Relational Insights. Every week, Mr. Wesley continues the conversations that matter. Honest, specific, without the performance of composure that men in this situation have been sold as strength for far too long.